All right, so welcome to this week's Social Justice Research Seminar. It's my pleasure this week to introduce one of our practicum education faculty members, which I think this might be the first practicum education-led seminar for the year. So this is Dr. Steve Hydon, and he's going to be talking with us about the Champions Initiative around sports and social work. So take it away, Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. Great to be here. We have kind of this hybrid model of some folks joining online, so great to see you, and some folks in person. So hi to you all, and then hi to those that will be watching via YouTube whenever you get a chance to do that. Really excited to talk to you today about this new initiative that we've started here at the school a couple of years ago. The Champion Initiative is actually, the Champions is an acronym which stands for Comprehensive Health and Athletics for Mental Performance, Inclusivity, Opportunity, and Networks Initiative. And this got started a few years ago. And I'll get into a little bit about why we decided to launch this initiative and kind of where we are today and some future directions. So again, glad to be here. As Eric mentioned, I'm Dr. Steve Hydon. I'm on the practicum faculty. I've been here since 2000. So actually celebrating my 25th anniversary back in January. And I continue to grow and learn and meet new and exciting, wonderful people. And it's just been a journey for me that's been wonderful and supportive of students and colleagues and friends, both nationally and actually internationally. So that's kind of cool. This initiative seeks to leverage the transformative power of sports to drive social change, improve community well-being, and promote mental health and resilience. It's grounded in several core strategies, kind of based on some of the university strategies, including educational excellence and innovation, community engagement, professional development, and the potential for research. And I'll talk a little bit more about some exciting stages research proposals that we are. It doesn't have a couple of slides. We are looking at implementing cutting-edge interprofessional programs. Again, research on the intersection of social justice and sports, engage with local communities through service and partnerships. And we have a couple of those that, again, we're beginning to sort of build. So that's this initiative. It's comprised of a lot of individuals at our school. I am going to attempt to name everyone. I apologize ahead of time if I miss some of the names, but off the top of my head, I'm literally going off the top of my head, Raphael and Amy and Omar and Jumika and Devon and Michael and Annalisa and Renee. And Deborah Johnson Hayes, and I'm probably forgetting a couple of people, I hope not, but everyone has been really wonderful and supportive. And James, so we keep adding some new people as we go along, Sarah Calaboso Soto. And so it's kind of like half the school is involved. So anybody who's willing to talk with me about this Champions Initiative, I'm like, come on in and let's gather. So we have meetings just about once every semester. And hopefully we'll continue to kind of ratchet those meetings up as we begin to delve into some of the projects and initiatives that we've been exploring. So I mentioned I'll talk a little bit about why. And so a few years ago, President Folt launched these moonshots, which are these sort of huge endeavors that we want to be known for here at the university. And one of them is the impact of sports and community, and really being a primary place for students and athletes to engage, faculty and staff and communities to engage in sports. So there was kind of an initial sort of platform that was established by President Folt. The intersection of social work, social justice, sports, and technology is an emerging field and with significant potential for societal impact. And there is a growing demand for highly trained professionals who can integrate these elements to address complex societal issues and the need for mental health support, especially around anxiety, depression, social isolation, and the dialectical relationship between mental health and sport performance, long-term challenges athletes face throughout their lifespan. So now is a great time, and we're not new to this space. There's lots of other schools and other areas that have been looking at sport and social work for over a decade. So we're glad to be a part of this really wonderful new
there's any.
Los Angeles is a hub, and in many ways, USC will be the epicenter of several major sporting events in the next years, like the 2026 World Cup, the NBA All-Star Game, the Super Bowl, and of course, the 2028 Summer Olympics. And a lot of that is going to be happening right here, not just in Los Angeles, but right here on our campus. In fact, if you walk around our campus, you can already see them starting to build some of the Olympic structures. So we feel like as a school, we're well positioned to respond to the increasing demand and visibility for mental health resources in sports, given our expertise amongst our colleagues and faculty and staff and leadership. Mental health and athletes have been at the forefront over the past several years, with high-profile athletes sharing their experiences with depression, anxiety, and substance use. So it just seems a natural fit for us to move into this area. We hope to continue to bring these conditions to the forefront of how we are preparing MSW graduates to tackle these conditions from a social work lens, through publications, roundtable discussions, media events that we can host on campus, and so showcasing some of our achievements. So we do have some partnerships. We've begun to have some initial conversations with our USC Athletic Department. I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. We have connections with LA Unified, South Pasadena Unified. We have connections with the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport. They're a wonderful organization. They're headquartered out of Chicago, but they're doing some fascinating work on justice in sport and athletes. And they have a bunch of local connections here in Los Angeles. So we're looking to foster some of those relationships here, but also broadly, because we have a national footprint as well in our school. We're also building some relationships with the Dodgers and with the Clippers, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of that work when I get into the research agenda. Specifically, the creation of micro, meso, and macro practice internships to start with, and then perhaps explore other areas of collaboration, whether they're service collaboration, impact studies, research designs. And I'll get into some of that a little bit later. This is pretty exciting. So there is a National Alliance for Social Work in Sports, the only national network that I'm aware of that solely addresses how well-being and mental health and sports intersect with one another. They've been around for over a decade and a half, and every year they have a conference. So the 11th annual conference will be this upcoming fall in New Orleans at Tulane University. And then the goal is to have that conference come here to our campus in fall of 2026. So we are really close to making that a reality. I've been having great conversations with a few years ago, I reached out to their then president, Dr. Jerry Franklin, who's at Ball State University. Very excited about talking with us about bringing the conference here. He is now the past president, and they've elected a new president named Matt Moore. And we've had some wonderful conversations. In fact, I had dinner with him and his executive team in Kansas City at the CSWE conference to talk more about the logistics of bringing the conference out here to campus. So we're really excited about that. Again, this is a network of faculty, athletic department, staff, sports social workers and athletic programs, and professional sports teams, and even EAP programs. The Alliance raises national awareness for the needs of athletes and their well-being. And again, hosts this, it's kind of a 2-day conference with an opening reception and typical conference agenda with workshops and plenary speakers. And it's a really exciting opportunity for us to, again, put ourselves on the map for our School of Social Work. Let's see. The thing I wanted to talk about was, and then I'll definitely want to open this up. A lot of this is really thinking about sort of ideas and want to get some feedback from you in the audience here and then online as you're listening to this. Folks, last year, I worked with colleagues Amy Odette and Rafael Angulo, and then had some great support from Devon Brooks on developing a brand new elective called the Transformative Power of Sport and Social Work. We worked on this elective for about a year, and then we were able to get it approved by our curriculum council so when I say last December, I mean December of 2024. And then it went to the university for approval, and it was approved shortly thereafter. And so I'll talk a little bit about the elective. So I just started teaching it on Mondays this spring semester, and it's been really, really great. We've got 19 students enrolled, and it's when I get kind of the literature review of what's out there across the country, I tried to think about that and then think about what gaps and what are some subjects that we might be able to think about that might not be covered in some of the other programs. It's a brand, like I said, brand new elective, new not only to our school, but to the university. So really kind of a one of a kind elective. It's offered to any student, not only in our school, but any student at the university level. And that's intentional. We want to have a nice blend of different types of students with different backgrounds and disciplines enrolling in this course. So this is our first semester. So all the current students are our current MSW students. Some are, the course is offered online. So we have actually students from all over the state of California who are attending this course on, again, on Monday evenings. So it really was a labor of love project. And in fact, it was featured in the lead story on USC News in early August of this past year, kind of timed it with the Summer Olympics. So that was a great sort of launching initiative for us. Unlike any other offered course at USC, considers societal, environmental, and holistic impacts of mental health, justice, diversity, and equity for athletes across the lifespan. So it's not just for our scholastic athletes, even though most of the students in my class are working in school settings, K-12 settings. It is also for collegiate athletes, professional athletes, and in fact, last night's unit was on the aging athlete. And so we're really looking at how does sports and well-being interact with one another across athletes, again, across this lifespan. Course topics include play and well-being, sports and at-risk populations, gender and diversity, bullying, isolation, substance use and athletes, again, the aging athlete, coach and parental influence on athletes, and the complexities of money in sports and the ever-changing landscape of name, image, and likeness. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because it's really exciting. And so, like I mentioned, I had students in class last night. And the way we do this is the class is 2.5 hours. And there's some content that they review and look at, whether it's websites or it's YouTube videos or TED Talks. There's no textbooks, so it's all those types of different ways the students are learning. And they do that ahead of time, and then they come to class prepared to talk about what they've learned kind of on their own. And then I get them into breakout groups, and I have them do various activities that they can build together in small groups and then share with the rest of the class. And so, for example, last night, it was on the aging athlete. I don't know if you ever knew this, but there's actually senior boot camps out there that are really fascinating, where seniors come and they gather together to learn about wellness and health and exercise. And so the students were responsible in their breakout groups to build a 2-day boot camp. And what would that look like, and what would be in it, and how would you involve mental health and wellness and social work? So they had a lot of fun with that. A couple of weeks ago, I was really excited about this. I showed a small YouTube clip of a motivational speech from Carol Walters, who's the head coach at the time, I believe, at Duke University. And so I showed that clip, and then they got into dyads, and they had that unit and then the following unit to develop their own motivational or inspirational speeches. And so a couple of weeks ago on a Monday, they all got together and each dyad presented their motivational speech. It was literally, I had chills. It was like groundbreaking. They just had so much fun doing it. And then what they did was some students took it upon themselves in their academic freedom to actually set up what the speech was. And so they said, okay, imagine you're in a high school gymnasium and it's right before graduation. You have all your student athletes. How are you going to motivate them? And then the last dyad of students that went, they said, okay, it's halftime. We're down by like 20 points in the basketball game. And how are you going to motivate your athletes to get ready to go out there and play? And so, yeah, it was sports, but it was also inspirational and leadership and advocacy and teamwork. Really, really fascinating stuff. I have them build podcasts. We've had them build one-day workshops. So where I'm going with this is, what I'm finding is that the students enjoy owning the learning with themselves and learning with other peers, and then bringing that learning and their creativity back to the larger classroom space and activities that they can actually do today or tomorrow in their actual practical placement. So they've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun teaching it. And so at the end of the year, we have a couple of different assignments. So one of the assignments was a scavenger hunt. I know it's not scavenger hunt. What do you mean? They're out looking for things. Well, here's what they did. I gave them a list of 6 different activities that they could do. They had to select 4. So interview a student athlete, interview a coach, do a windshield survey comparing 2 different park and recreational areas, looking at a YouTube video and commenting on it and critiquing like a film. So they had a lot of fun with that scavenger hunt. The last assignment is going to be due in class. It would be a presentation on how they built and developed an actual recreational play program that weaves in well-being, social work, and sports. So again, students really, last night just checked in, how's the class going? And they were just all super excited about the class, and they were really happy to take it. And I think I have just one last slide here. And again, I'll just like to sort of open this up for some questions and some ideas and thoughts. So where are we headed? Let me talk about some of the research proposals first. And so again, these are in their infancy stages, just beginning to have some conversation as recently as last December with one of them, and as recently as Friday, a few days ago. Okay, so the one in December. So I had a really great conversation with our athletic director, Jen Cohen. She's awesome, she's fantastic, wonderful to get to know. And so we started to talk a little bit about, looking at alumni, so student athletes who have graduated, and the impact that USC has had on their sort of empowerment and their life orientation and goal development, and sort of where they see themselves in the future. So talking with her a little bit about that particular research, and working with Michael and others on that. And then on Friday, had a really wonderful conversation with a representative from the Clippers. They've done some really fantastic work with neighborhood basketball courts, and they refurbished like over 500 of them. And so we're thinking about, and we were talking on Friday, and we're thinking about what would it look like, what would an impact study look like in order to see how have these basketball courts impacted community pride, community engagement, reduction in isolation, family engagement, increase in exercise and collaboration and peer support. So again, beginning to think about some of these research ideas and some of these topics, and that's one of the reasons why we're here, maybe to solicit some feedback and some ideas from those of you who are here. Future directions. So we're thinking about design labs. Love to build out these design labs to bring together stakeholders to help inform our own direction of where we want to go in this particular area. I did a mini literature review, as I mentioned, and discovered that there are a handful of MSW programs that nationally that work in this particular area, either a coursework or a certificate. So NYU, Michigan, and Tulane. So I kind of did this Excel spreadsheet about looking at what they're offering and what can we offer that might be different or completely within our realm of expertise and area of focus. So that's been exciting, but we also don't want to build things on our own. We want to get stakeholder feedback and some ideas from individuals who are out there that can help inform us of where they see the direction of sport and social work. And so what would that look like? Is that going to be more coursework? Would that be a certificate program? Would that be a one-year degree? Would we think about more research agendas? Would we think about more focused design? Would we have like maybe mini conferences or one-day workshops? So these are all the things that we're excited about exploring. Again, not only with the people that are in the committee that I mentioned earlier, those of you here in the audience and online, but also some of the stakeholders that we're beginning to develop relationships with in the future. And then we'd also like to establish a relationship and a connection with Mayor Bass's office and her role in the LA 2028 with a sole focus on the Olympics. So those are some of the research ideas, some of the future directions. You kind of have an overview of this Champions Initiative, the course that we've built out, and all the people that have been involved. And when I mentioned all those individuals, now I'm looking at Omar's also on that committee, and Yumika, I don't know if I had mentioned them. And so a lot of people are kind of working on some of these sports and initiatives on their own, and then we all kind of come together and we bring our ideas and think out loud. So it's been a lot of fun working on that particular team. So I will stop there, Eric, and see if we have some thoughts, questions, reflections, feedback, and anything that I've covered this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Steve. I will make the audience online visible. Just to make you feel better, you got a big online audience, 29 people online.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
you have an unusually large online audience. So
Unusually
folks who
large,
are
yeah.
online, if you want to raise your hand or unmute yourselves and ask questions, feel free.
Maybe you end your presentation, Steve?
What?
Maybe end your presentation?
Oh, yep, so stop sharing, you mean that?
Yep.
Yep, maybe I should do that, if I know how to work this.
And it looks like John Blazich has his hand up for a question.
Stop
and I have
sharing.
the rest of it
Okay.
sorted. Go.
Hey,
Oh, we're trying to
oh, can you hear me okay?
go.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Help me out here. How do I do this
Hang
here?
on, hang on,
Okay,
John, speak up because the mic in the speaker in here is a little quiet.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, you're great.
Okay, I'm blasting everyone else who's online, but maybe folks in the room can actually hear me. Thanks, Steve, for this presentation. I wondered, you mentioned the sort of the broad array of topics that you all are covering. One thing that comes up for me, at least in the role that I also serve on the county's child and adolescent suicide review team. And in digging into some of these cases, a lot of these young people were involved in either club sports or, just their high school sports or even middle school sports. But in some cases, we've had sort of this thread of really intense pressure on some of these young athletes by their parents mostly. Um, and you did mention sort of like how these students kind of practice or think through talking to parents. And I wonder if you can say more about, you know, how those conversations go with the students, because I feel like, at least for what I see it in terms of, again, what we've learned from this adolescent review team is that it can result in, unfortunately, a lot of pressure put on these young athletes.
yep, John, thank you. And so I want to repeat that. And so I think you're talking about the intense pressure, especially on young athletes. So interesting. We actually talked about this in yesterday's class and some of the research that says that up to 70% of student athletes actually stop playing a sport because of the pressures that they feel and the expectations that they feel they need to live up to by their parents and sometimes by coaches. One of the things we also know is that we're not teaching kids how to some of the basic skill sets to play a sport. So when you're dropping your kid off at T-ball, have we taught the kids how to hit the ball, how to throw, how to practice swinging and field ground balls? And so it's like, and this article talked about, it's the equivalent of dropping a kid off and expecting them to play the violin. Like there are certain things they have to learn before we can actually drop them into these fields of play and have them excited about learning how to play sports and being engaged in sport that way. It also just so happens that in 2 weeks, so next week is spring break. So in 2 weeks, I have two of my colleagues, Omar Lopez and a friend of mine, Clinton Simmons, who they're going to be presenting on the coach and parent influence on student athletes and how are they looking at their expectations. How do sometimes parents want to live vicariously through their students and not put the pressure on them to demand that they do so well, which actually you find out is we're taking the fun out of play. So we're addressing that in the class, and we're addressing that through some of the research articles that we've been presenting and thinking about in class.
I have a question,
Eric
which
has
is
a
a little bit of a follow-up to John's question, which is I've been having some interesting dialogues with a couple of our PhD students who are actually here in the room, and kind of talking about the tension between thinking about sports as a positive part of especially young people's lives that can be a source of resilience and intervention in a sense where it's, this is a communities that you get to be a part of, peers that are potentially positive, that you get to be a part of, relationships with coaches that can be positive, versus, as John was saying, sort of the tension of kind of performance. And I'm wondering if in your course and also in your thinking about research, if you are kind of leaning more one way or the other in terms of sports as a social work intervention or social work interventions for athletes to help them deal with mental health issues. And if maybe the answer is both, kind of how are you thinking about each of those two areas?
Yeah, I do kind of think of them as both, because one of the key areas we talked about is the athlete identity and what happens when sports is over, whether their skill sets diminish, there's no longer an interest, there's an injury. And so how do we help an athlete be a bit more holistic where they're thinking about who they are as an individual? And so that's where I feel the role of social work comes in. Like, yeah, sports is important and I get that, but that's not your only thing. It doesn't define you. There are so many other ways that we can think about who you are as a person. And I think we also then get to that parent who thinks my kid's going to make it. My kid's the one who's going to go pro. And the reality is, no, they're not. And so how do we build up some of those other characteristics of self-esteem and teamwork and collaboration that you're learning through sports, but then you're applying through life skills and other tangibles. So I think it is kind of a blend of both, but it is, where is that role of social work to help a student athlete or a professional athlete understand that this is time bound. At some point in time, there are other things that are happening in life that we want to help highlight and enhance and amplify in some particular situations. Incidentally, I should have mentioned this when I had this wonderful conversation with Denise with the Clippers. She talked about that every NBA team actually is required to have some type of mental health consultant or staff on their team. I actually didn't know that until I learned this on Friday. So that again addresses some of the points that we've already talked about this morning or this afternoon, and that is really emphasizing the importance of mental health on athletes' well-being. So I was really I'm pleased to hear that. I see Ben has his hand up. And Ben, by the way, was instrumental in helping me connect with this Clippers work. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge Dr. Henwood.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Great work to you and everyone involved in this. And I think I just thinking about some of the questions that have been posed this morning, and I may have missed this, but are you or is anyone in the school working on some scholarship around the conceptualization of the intersection between social work and sports? Because I think even in this discussion, I've sort of heard it, as an intervention, sort of as a place to address some other issues. I mean, I think even when you talk about the Clippers situation with the basketball courts, it really becomes like a focal point of families where they go to gather, on the weekends. And so there's just a lot. And as an AYSO referee, I can tell you all the bad behaviors about parents, where definitely there could be some de-escalation that's needed, in these situations. And so there's just a lot of ways to think about this intersection. And so I'm just wondering to what extent our school is or can lead on the scholarship on this piece. And I don't know, maybe that's already something our doctoral students are working on. That's just more of a question. And sorry if you already covered that.
Yeah, Ben, I appreciate it. So we do have two doctoral students who happen to be in the audience right now with Sierra and Alex. They're fantastic young men. They're super excited about some of these initiatives. They've been working not only with me, but with some of our other colleagues on various initiatives. So yes, engaging in some type of scholarship that way. I keep getting tapped on the shoulder to write some type of op-ed, so some type of opinion piece to start getting some literature out there about what are we thinking about this intersection of sport and social work? Where do we see the future direction of that? And also looking at the potential to find some philanthropic work and try to raise some awareness and some donations so that we can, again, do some of these design labs that we were thinking about doing. So I think the other part to your question, Ben, is as I mentioned, it was kind of at the beginning, we're sort of at the beginning stages of how else are we looking and involving ourselves and putting a footprint on the area of social work and sport, especially here in Southern California. Again, I've looked at some of the other schools, and there might be some schools that are thinking about this, but we seem to be one of the only schools of social work that are actually beginning to build out some of our network and some of our initiative around sport and social work. So part of this also, and I reached out to Eric back in, I think it was November or something, and I was like, hey, I don't have research per se just yet, but is this an opportunity where we can kind of vet ideas and think about some activities? And he was like, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we want to do this. So as you're hearing out loud, whether it's Ben's question and John's question and others, Eric's, as you're hearing what I had to say, please feel free to reach out to me. Everyone pretty much knows who I am, you know how to get in touch with me. And so I'd love to explore. I get articles and I get things across my desk all the time. And so continue to reach out, send me information, send me your interests, and I'll definitely get you connected and plugged into some of the work that we are doing. For sure. And I see Holly. I think I might have neglected to mention Holly's also on this team. And my boss, Dr. Ruth Sopranovich, has been super supportive and helpful and engaging. I bounced some ideas off of her, and she's like, "Yep, sounds great. Go for it." And so that's been wonderful to get her support. And I've had other practicum colleagues who have also been very helpful and thoughtful with launching kind of this new area that I think our school is pretty much excited about, including the school's leadership. I had a wonderful, at least one, if not two meetings with Vasily, our dean, and he's been super supportive and engaging with how this looks in our school and the future direction of that. And as I mentioned, Devon Brooks has been a wonderful support. He and I meet just about monthly, and we're always talking about wonderful opportunities. And this happens to be the one that we've most recently explored and engaged in. So that's been really exceptional. Holly has her hand up. Yeah, Holly.
Yeah, Steve, again, congratulations. Wow, I'm so inspired. You're rocking it. Love it. I just wanted to also add that Flora Romero, she was joined in on this call. She's an alumni who also did the social work and she had her internship at the USC Athletics, and then just recently worked for the Clippers. And so she was texting me while you were talking about the Clippers that she was a part of that project. So I say this because, we're really excited about how we're rebranding the Sky department, our macro social work, that I am so excited to build on those Sky placements with you and the others. So keep up the great job. Thank you.
Holly, thank you for the words of support, and it's been wonderful to have you on the team. Yeah, you and I have actually talked about some interesting non-traditional type of internships, and so we'll continue to explore that. It also isn't lost on me that we will look at that and how we weave in this into our BSW program. So I've had some really cool conversations both with Dr. Franklin and with Omar to talk a little bit more about what does that look like and how can we sort of encourage our BSW students. As a matter of fact, there's also already been some preliminary conversation with some of those across the university. I happen to sit on the USAC committee, and so that's a committee of staff and faculty that really look at student athletes across the university, and already beginning some initial conversation about could we develop a course similar to right now, the course that we're offering is a 600 level series course. Could it be maybe a 400 or 500 level series course for some of our underclassmen or upperclassmen, and then maybe that sort of that BSW student that's coming to the program. So that's already out there, and I've had some cool conversations about, well, what would that course look like and how would that emerge? So that's also something really exciting that we're looking forward to. Any other thoughts, questions? And we have some students who just happen to be here, and I was like, hey, you stay, hang out, and you know anything about sport and social work? So glad to hear anything that strikes you or anything that maybe, I didn't think about it. That might be interesting. No pressure, but you just happen to be here. So I thought maybe I would engage you in case you had any thoughts or ideas. And that's okay if you don't. You're like, no, we're working on our studies and we have midterms. I totally get it, but glad that you were able to join. Yeah.
I have another question. It's maybe a little bit more of a personal question, but you mentioned at the beginning of your talk the President Folt's initiatives around sports and well-being and her moonshots. Kind of wondering how you got interested in this area, because it is a non-traditional sort of social work. And so what was your sort of origin story in getting involved in this?
Yeah. So everyone who knows me knows I love social work and I love sports. I also like cooking, but there's no cooking in social work. So if I can make a recipe book, I'll do that. But so I just always had an affinity and a passion for sports. I played sports. I wasn't a collegiate athlete, but certainly, did the intramurals, basketball, and all those types of things. So I just was always excited. We had started doing some of this work many years ago when Dr. Stacy Kratz was here. And then we didn't really pick that up until President Polk came out with that moonshine. So Devon organized a group of us. I think it was me, myself, Raphael, Annalisa, Renee. The two of them are also a part of this committee. I think Unique and a few others. And we just sat down and kind of had a brainstorming session of what could this possibly look like and where do we see this going? And that was a really great conversation. And I just sort of reached out to Devon and said, hey, I'd love to take some leadership in this and maybe organize some ideas and some people and bring some colleagues together. And so I know and I mentioned this in the faculty meeting, a lot of people know me as the school's PBSC guy and secondary trauma. And that is where I kind of dug my heels here at the school. But I've been really excited about moving into this space just because, again, my own affinity with sports and playing sports and then obviously being in this profession, and didn't know that the two of them could be connected until I started to learn more and started to realize that, oh, this is actually a thing. Let's do that thing. And so that's how I got sort of connected from that personal story. Yep. Thanks for asking.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
appreciate it.
And Steve,
Yeah, Omar.
you mentioned that you like cooking. There is culinary and social work. In fact, there's an alumna of us that is doing culinary therapy or something.
Oh my gosh, I
And
did
we're
not
both-
know that.
Yeah, so we have an alumna that actually, there you go, there's a third thing that you could add to that. It's more social work while doing culinary therapy.
Yeah, let's do some cooking, let's play some sports, let's do some social work, and let's engage.
Non-traditional.
All that, yeah, absolutely. Other thoughts, online or from colleagues that are here in the audience? Well, I do thank you for showing up. I know the weather conditions may have not allowed folks to be here, but I see a tremendous amount of energy online. So thank you
For
so
sure.
much for being here and taking time out of your day. And for those that did come in person, greatly appreciate you listening to what we had to talk about today. And if you don't know, my last name is Hydon. My email is Hydon, Hydon @usc.edu. And feel free to reach out to me with any ideas, thoughts, reflections, or if you want to be a part of this team as we continue. We started off with about 5 and now we're at about 25. So
There you
we'll
go.
continue to grow. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's give him a round of applause. Thanks so much, Dr. Hydon, and thanks for bringing to us something that is so in its formative stages, because I think sometimes people are afraid to use this as a forum to bounce ideas, and I think it's a great place for that to happen. So thanks a lot for
Thank you.
sharing that.
Appreciate it.